Hey Kokomo, we are here at Lee Supply in Kokomo, and this is part of our Thanksgiving series where we meet up with talented local chefs and they walk us through incredible Thanksgiving dishes. Let's jump into it. All right, so I am here with Wynter Hosier from Etta's Gooey Goodies. Wynter, you know I'm an Etta's Gooey Goodies fangirl. My kids actually call the farmer's market the cookie place because
do they really?
They do.
That is so
you
cool.
Made them fall in love with the farmer's market with your cookies. What are you making?
We are making a pumpkin roll cheesecake cake. If you like pumpkin rolls but really like the cream cheese better than the cake, this is what you want.
I said off camera, this is like the turducken of Thanksgiving desserts. This is all the things into one.
We're gonna do the cheesecake first because you have to bake it for 50 minutes to an hour. You have to let it sit in the oven for another hour, and then you have to pull it out and put it on the countertop until it comes to room temperature.
So I have never made a cheesecake in my entire life.
Seriously, never?
Yes, this is my first time.
Okay, well we're gonna cheat. So we don't have to worry about wrapping the spring form with aluminum foil and doing a water bath and all that. It's not necessary.
This is the best, my first cheesecake ever.
All right, so we've already got one block of cream cheese in the mixer, and we're gonna put in the other one. And we're gonna start it on speed 1. We wanna go until that's kind of softened up and mixed around in the bowl. Already got 100 grams of sugar in here, also known as half a cup, and then 20 grams of flour, also known as 2 tablespoons.
Got it.
We're gonna let that go for a second, and while we do, we can go ahead and start cracking our eggs. 2 eggs plus 1 yolk. I'm putting a little bit of vanilla. And you're supposed to use 1.5 teaspoons, but I measure with my heart. All right, so I'm gonna put in the rest of the ingredients, and Erin is gonna grease the pan. So you just spray it, just this part, and then you wipe it, and then we're gonna put it right back on here and snap it into place.
That feels like something I can do.
We're gonna do 1/4 cup of the half and half, 1/4 cup of sour cream. It's getting nice and creamy in there, isn't it?
Look at them go.
All right, we're gonna go back to 1. We've got 1 egg and the other egg. Since we're using cream cheese, we don't have to add any salt like most cakes and cookies require salt. So now all we have to do is let that mix in and scrape it one more time, mix it one more time, and then we just pour. And this is gonna go into your preheated oven at 325 degrees. If you wanna do a lazy man's water bath, you just fill a pot with hot water or water and put it at the bottom. They say you're supposed to do that to keep it from cracking, but we don't care if it cracks because it's gonna be the turducken of cheesecakes.
She goes into a preheated oven at 325 degrees, right?
Yep, and if you've got convection setting, even better. And we want her on the middle rack.
Okay, so where do we start?
We start with butter.
Yes.
I use Natalie Sorensen's vanilla cake. You can just Google it and find it, but we're using half the recipe, and we are adding in 1/4 cup. If you use the whole recipe, you'd use a half a cup of the pumpkin pie mix. So while that does that, let's go ahead and get our pan ready.
Got it.
I cheated and I already greased it for Erin, so she didn't have to do that. And this one's gonna go in the oven at 350 for 50 to 55 minutes. You can either check it with a thermometer, you want it to be 220 degrees, or you want to touch the center and have it spring back. We just want 3/4 of a teaspoon and a tablespoon of vanilla this time. We're getting there. It kind of looks like curdled cottage cheese, a little bit gross looking. So we want 111 grams of milk, and then we want whatever half of 185. It's heavy whipping cream. All right, we've got our butter getting lighter and fluffier. We're gonna turn it up. The more air we get into it, the better. So the trick to a nice light, airy cake is lots of air, which means you definitely want to use your beater, and you want to mix it when you have the butter in as long as possible, when you have the sugar in with the butter as long as possible, and when you add your egg. We want to go as high as we can without having everything flinging everywhere.
Got it.
Over here, I've got a mix of cake flour and all-purpose flour, and then 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Okay, look at her now.
Oh, she's getting lighter in color.
Got it. All right, so she is super, super fluffy now. Did you think it was gonna get that big?
I did not.
You'll know it's ready when it starts to look like soft serve ice cream.
Okay.
I let it mix a little bit longer, and now we're gonna add in our dry and our wet ingredients. The dry goes in 3 parts, and the wet goes in 2. And you wanna make sure that this is room temperature, so you can microwave your liquid for like 15, 20 seconds.
Got it.
So this has your flour, your cake flour, and your baking powder. So it is very important when you're making cake and cupcake to not overmix. You can add in all of your ingredients except for the flour and let everything mix as long as you want. Once you add in the flour, it starts to activate the gluten. Over processed flour, will make it taste like cornbread. I like to try to pour the liquid over the blades of the mixer to get off any of the dry bits without having to go in there and scrape it. All right, so it's not quite mixed, but we don't want it overmixed. So this is where we put our spatula to work for real. It's not quite all mixed in, so I'm gonna scrape it. If you're using a convection oven, 350 for 50 minutes and then check. Sometimes it'll need to go for an hour and 5, especially if you're using a standard oven. We're gonna pop her into the oven now.
Cakes are made. Cheesecake is made. Now we have the tricky part of assembling.
It's not tricky.
Okay.
Don't scare them.
Okay.
The number one thing you need is a serrated blade.
Got it.
There's cake knives, there's butter knives, there's chef knives. Step 1 is torting our cake. Slicing our cake horizontally.
Oh my goodness.
You are going to line up your knife
The
halfway
confidence
down,
you have.
and you just hold your knife still, and you just go round and round and round.
Okay.
This is where that parchment that we put on the bottom of the cake pan comes in handy. And once you get about halfway through, you can just go all the way across. We're gonna set that down on top of our parchment. This will be the top of our cake.
Guys, I wish you could smell this. It smells so good.
Here's our secret ingredient. This is called simple syrup. It is equal parts water and sugar, and it's used all over the world to coat your cakes to keep them from getting dried out in the fridge.
Ah.
Since this is a cheesecake cake, it has to be stored in the refrigerator. So if you have time, just melt sugar and water, like 1 cup of each, and then you can use a pastry brush to really kind of drench your cake. And you just want to go around and around and around until you can see it all over your cake. And now we do our first round of cream cheese icing, which we didn't do here for today.
But you said it's just a really simple recipe, right?
It's 1 part cream cheese, 2 parts butter, and then 3 parts powdered sugar. And we just want the icing to go all the way to the edge, and then we're on to our cheesecake. Now pick the whole thing up, including the base, and you want to do your best to kind of center it over the cake. And we really don't need to do thick icing on this because this is cheesecake. Cheesecake is moist. The whole point of icing, aside from flavor, is to keep moisture in your cake. All right, so now we're on the final step. This is chilled, it's ready. So we're gonna take our icing around. A lot of people just slap their icing onto the top of cake and go, but this is easier for me. Now we're just gonna take that offset spatula again and kind of smooth it out the side. All right, there she is. There's our pumpkin roll cheesecake cake, and you can go as heavy or as light with the pumpkin spice and with the icing as you want.
Wynter, you are an awesome teacher. I told you before, I'm not a baker, but I feel like I learned so many things through this on like what to do. You make me confident that I could be a baker.
Good,
But you
I'm
also
hiring.
you make me confident that I could come to your shop and I could also have you make this delicious thing for me too.
Yeah, we like to make these. We've got them in several different flavors. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
If you want more fun content like this, make sure you follow us at the Kokomo Post on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.